Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bilco number RPRS400. This is a replacement 400-pound lifting mechanism used on their roof hatches. And the 400-pound is obviously on the larger size of the side of the spectrum when it comes to weight capacity. And you'll see these installed by themselves or with another unit or with several others. I've seen them installed in a mixed situation where they've got lighter spring installations installed, and all of that is engineered when the roof hatch is created, when it's built, when it's designed, I should say. And a 400-pound is used. There is no roadmap that we have that tells us you will always use a 400-pound in this scenario, meaning we're not in possession of it. It must exist at the factory, or those guidelines. So helping sell replacement parts sometimes is a bit of a challenge because we're missing the data in terms of when would you use a 400-pound in all instances. So what can we do to help? Well, if you're looking for a replacement roof mechanism, here's what we know. We can tell you the size of the existing unit, and if you're looking to replace one, let's certainly look at this dimensionally first. And I'm going to pull my caliper out. And let's look at the diameter of the top tube. Because I've usually found starting with that is a good way to begin. The diameter of the top tube is 2.577. 2.577 inch. Diameter of the lower tube, 2.147. 2.147. Now the next thing that we can determine, and it doesn't necessarily help at all, but we can obviously measure the distance from where the lower tube will mount to the sidewall bracket to where it will mount to the lid. Now that doesn't really help us per se because this shock is already somewhat compressed. First of all, center to center, I'd say you're going to be about 13 inch. Scratch that, about 12 and 5/8 it looks like. Yeah, about 12 and 5/8. It doesn't help us necessarily because if you are standing at a roof hatch, your door will either be closed or possibly open. Well, this is already pre-compressed, and it's pre-compressed to a point where it is about 30 or 40 degree ajar, where that lid is already open. So we don't know what the center to center will be when you are in the closed position, fully compressed, nor when you're in the open position with the spring with least tension applied to it. So we don't know the minimum and maximum value of this spring by studying this because this is already compressed, partially compressed. And when you get this installed, and they're assuming that you're going to want to install the unit with the lid halfway open. So that's why they give it these dimensions, or that amount of compression. You get it bolted and seated, bolted to the top and seated to the bottom. You'll then pull this retaining pin out that's held in, and you'll pull that out, and then you'll have an active installation. We don't pull that out because I have no way to compress this. I have no safe way of recompressing this, nor do I get that information from the factory. And I've asked in the past, and the factory does not seek to necessarily give out the data to facilitate people installing their material in unknown circumstances. And it's obvious why they would. They don't want to be culpable for an unsafe installation. Thoroughly understandable. Because you've got some variables. Where is it mounted to the lid? Where is it mounted to the sidewall? What is that distance? And they know about their product, the ones that they've manufactured, but they can't assist in homemade roof hatches. They can't assist in other people's hatches. So what I try to do, because there are lots of times when a client says, I think it's a Bilco, but there's no name on it anywhere. And some of the parts certainly look like that. So what do we do? We're left to try to help the client. So my role, I feel, is to bring you as close to a solution as possible. Of course, with the understanding there are so many unknowns that we're only able to really try to potentially eliminate as many of the unknowns as possible. So this is the shock itself, a non-corrosive housing. You're going to get with it the boot that will mount to the sidewall. Let's go over some dimensional properties of this. Overall width, about 2 3/4. Overall height, about 1 13/16. Center to center on those holes, because it's really the mounting points that we're most concerned with if we're replacing, I would think. 1 inch. Total projection, about 2 1/8, but then to the pin itself looks like it's about 1 1/2 inches. You'll get a couple of zinc dichromate brackets for the upper lid, one of each hand. In there, you'll see installations where there's only one bracket, and you'll see others with 2. They send one of each, so you're covered, regardless if you're using one and you're not sure what side of the door or the lid you're mounting it on. And when we define the hand, left or right, like in a hold-open bracket, or the side of the unit that you're installing the lifting mechanism on, it's when you're on the roof and you're looking at the lid, and the lid is open. Left is on the left, right is on the right. Zinc dichromate. Now, I've also seen the factory send stainless versions of this and the bolts, but when it's an RPRS400 like this, zinc dichromate would be typical. Steel is what I'm trying to say, with that corrosion-resistant covering. Overall, about 3 1/2. Overall width, about 1 7/16 inches. Depth of the bracket, about 3 inch. Centers on those holes look like it's 2 inch. Then you'll get all the bolts that you're going to need. You'll get the hex cap bolt and nut that will go through here and through the brackets. You will get the bolts that will hold this onto the sidewall, and then you'll get the bolts that will hold your brackets to the lid as well, and those are all included in that package. Okay. Other spring capacities for these would be a 100, a 180. Certainly they'll do a 300, a 400, and a 500 pound, a 480 as well. And then these lifting mechanisms will change based on it being a roof hatch, or if it's a vault or a sidewalk or a floor door. If you're working on a scenario where you're trying to determine what do I need, let's start with sending us photographs. That's number one. Our email is under the contact section of the website. Is there a serial number? A serial number is the proof positive way for me to know what was built on that door originally, because that data is kept on file at the factory. I can gain that, I can get a list of the shocks or lifting mechanisms and other hardware that would have been on there originally, and that's the safest way to proceed. And in the absence of having that data, then we're going to try to visually identify it. And if it looks like a Bilco, it's probably a Bilco in that case. Email us those photographs regardless. We'll be happy to help. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bilco products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website and a link to the manufacturer's full-line catalog as well of all their roof hatches. If you have any questions on the RPRS400 400-pound lifting mechanism or any other Bilco product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.